Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juhyun. I'm one of the assistant professors in the Department of Medicine at the University of Pittsburgh. And I'm here to introduce you some most recent changes in the healthcare sector in the United States. And I named as a juxtaposition of a healthcare and economy. And hopefully it can be a reasonably fruitful session for you. I have a little disclaimer. As you can see, I have a funding support from the NIH. I'm working with machine learning models to develop prediction models and apply to the bedside. And also, I have a funding from Korean device development fundings. And I work with some industries, and I am also working for NIH for funding proposal reviews. For the next 15 minutes, the talk will be introducing the US healthcare statistics and also currently worsening and declining actually global economy to a recession and how we gonna handle these tough times. So first of all, what is quite obvious here is healthcare cost in the United States is growing, at least linearly, sometimes exponentially. However, there are a lot of people, about 40% of US adults has a hard time in joining the insurance because they don't have enough funding or money. But over time, the sector cost, as you can see, from the hospital care to clinical service and drugs and nursing care, dental service, all the other sectors are growing, as you can see. And that can cause a problem in any sectors if economy fails. And as you can see on the left-hand side of the graph, over the last 50 years in the United States, the healthcare has been growing almost all the time. From anywhere between like a 15% to as low as around 3 to 4%. It's just following the recession, and when there's a bad economy, your healthcare spending is not growing that rapidly. However, if you just see in a cumulative graph on the right side, it just goes up, almost exponentially. Interestingly, if you compare that with like a GDP growth, the growth in spending will be pretty much proportional in the next 10 years as it has been the previous 10 years. And this just gives us an interesting cue that if economy fails, the healthcare will also suffer to some extent. So what happens in times of a recession? As you can see from the left-hand side graph from the McKinsey report, whenever there is a global economy turndown or domestic economic crisis, government spending usually goes up to compensate for the people who can't really afford the insurance. As I showed you in the previous slide, it's going to be more than 40%, and government has to kind of provide them some type of health care with their own funding, tax money. And you can see on the right-hand side what's happening in the industry. Whenever there is a recession or economic crisis, for example, this one is in 2008, subprime mortgage. Afterwards, you have almost always, a rebound of economic growth when there is an end of this triggering recession. But always have to keep in mind that there are two different groups of healthcare industries. One is more of resilient and the other one is non-resilient. And you can read pretty easily the gap between the resilient and non-resilient group gets larger after recession. So what would be the impact of current pandemic and recession which is about to start on the healthcare system? There are a lot of different ideas, but I can kind of summarize into 4 different sectors. That the first one is the healthcare system will be focusing on productivity more than before. The funding line, which funding is not only funding from the government agent, but also from industry or investors, the line of the funding or characteristics of it will be changed. And also the healthcare delivery system or delivery strategy will be changed as a needs-based more than innovation-based. And lastly, the administration process will be more streamlined to adapt to current situation of a pandemic. Well, some people say the healthcare sector is relatively recession-proof. Would that be really true in this recession? Well, over the last 1 year or so, Standard & Poor 500 stock index has been decreased by 15% in overall sector, but SP 500 in healthcare sector has decreased by only 10%. That could be one clue. Well, there is another theory that over the last 20 years of chart, you can see the healthcare expenditure overall will be increased at time of recession. However, keep in mind that the personal expenditure goes down. The government expenditure is going up, almost drastically to compensate for the personal loss. What about the investment into the startups or any type of industry in healthcare? Well, it has increased over the last few years, and 2021 it peaked at $14.7 billion in the first half. And if you compare with the first half of 2022, there's a little decrease, but still like a $10.3 billion, which is higher than ever except for 2021, our first half. So where does all the funding go? Well, the funding just goes on to all the fundamental parts. You can imagine easily that the investors want to generate more profit and values directly in the time of a crisis. And also, there is a great amount of investment in non-clinical workflow, such as like a cloud analytics or payment platform generation. Some fundings goes into like a special needs, and another funding goes into like innovation with a realistic goals. First of all, let's talk about the productivity and healthcare industry. The healthcare industry, the hiring power has been ever growing despite the recession. So this is a graph that's showing like a 2008 recession. All the other industry has decreased employment except for the healthcare. However, there is also going to be change in the delivery structure to increase the productivity. That includes the more home testing platforms and products available by the FDA. And a lot of insurance companies will cover virtual service and telemedicine. More people will be invested on preventive medicine. And also sometimes like a unicorn such as innovative startup can kind of come in the playground and create a new lines of revenues that can reduce the healthcare cost and increase the productivity too. Secondly, at the time of crisis, healthcare industry follow the needs rather than follow the wants. So on the left-hand side, you can see the United States map that's showing different states and counties, and darker part that doesn't really have any doctors or like a hospitals nearby, and the lighter part has relatively like a closer doctors or hospital systems. So you can see like the Midwest and the South has it's not a great amount of doctors or hospital systems right near their homes. So that's one like an imbalance in healthcare system delivery in the United States. On the right hand side, you can see different like a telehealth claims across different specialties, showing that psychiatrists or endocrinology rheumatologists are sort of like invested in more of telehealth in these days, not like general surgery, neurosurgeries, or orthopedic surgeries. Let me give you a couple of examples that utilizing telehealth in the United States. The first one is a Sanford Health, which is a large hospital system located in the South Dakota, which is in the Midwest of the United States. The healthcare system roughly covers about 250,000 miles across several states, and it recently launched a $350 million initiative to extend telehealth and deliver digital health service across the upper Midwest. That's teamed up with some startup companies and develop a physical examination tool for their patients. So patients basically buy these healthcare tools, and that allows to do some like a basic physical exam as directed by the telehealth doctors. And doctors can actually see the result of the physical exam by online, and they can make some decision pretty quickly, and has gained a lot of interest with people in their region. The next example is Geisinger Health, located in Pennsylvania. So the orthopedic surgeon and their teams in the Geisinger Health noticed that the people who get surgery need some in-hospital recovery, and then after they need to be in hospital rehab then going out of the hospital, still going to rehab, and then after being independent. So it takes a lot of time and energy as well as the healthcare spendings. So this is the current system. While they're in the inpatient, they need to see doctors pretty much every day. And they're going out to post-op clinic and they meet doctor at the week 2 and the week 6. And in the meanwhile, they're gonna get all those physical therapies. So what they came up with is they have shortened the hospital stay, and the last hospital a couple of days will be virtual clinic visits from home or nearest facility. And then they're going to have a virtual clinic visits quite often with the outpatient physical therapies. So instead of having week 2 and week 6 post-op clinic visit, they pretty much have a weekly, like a virtual clinic visits. So they have more clinic visits to check by the doctors. And what happened was, inpatient rehab stays previously like 80%, but it dropped down to 3%. So everybody went home and getting the virtual clinic visits weekly. And that is not just increasing patient satisfaction, but also increased overall, which means short and long-term patient outcome, which prognosis was definitely improved. So the next one that I want to introduce here is reformation and organizational improvement in the United States. So with the recession, a lot of things are changing, especially in government sector, since they're investing so much money to support for basic health care for individuals or taxpayers. The system changes rapidly. So you can see for the last 50 years or so, every time there's a recession or big economic crisis, the healthcare system changes as well afterwards. With those regulatory changes, the US government has been invested in incorporating a lot of different innovative technologies into current practice. And one of them is a software as a medical device. And you can actually find some white papers from the FDA website. And this specific paper indicates some action plan, which is a stepwise action plan to make this software used as a real-life medical device. It is like roughly 4 different parts. The first one is developing a good machine learning practice in the like a medical community or scientific community. And the second is creating a transparent environment for customers, which is patients. And the third one is creating a regulatory force in developing scientifically sound machine learning models and practice patterns. And the last one is deploying into real world, at least as a pilot, performance level assessment, so that you can have some more kind of a clarity in using this software as a medical device. So I really encourage you to kind of look up the website of FDA, or on the right lower side, you can, I put it out some other government's action plan, which is spanning from 2021 to 2023. So you can learn more, more things about this. So what is the bottom line here? The first of all, the economy will go down and global conflict is going to go up, as you can see from the Russian-Ukraine war. So overall, the trajectory will going down before going up. It'll take a few years. At the time of a crisis like this, the company which produces values or profit directly will survive most likely, and companies relying on the innovative ideas without much output will relatively suffer. The government currently has some sandboxes to play with to experiment your gadgets. This is mostly generated by COVID-19 pandemic, but also, as you saw from previous slides, the government try to create a much larger playground for you, and the economy will support that as it's turning to uphill again. And at the end of this economic crisis, it's going to come. It's a matter of just time. It's definitely going to come. And when it comes, if the companies are prepared with innovative ideas and innovative solution, especially to contribute to current healthcare, the company will probably get a lot of funding support and thrive. So my conclusion here, First of all, the healthcare cost will rise with the GDP increase, which means the industry goes hand in hand with the economy. The healthcare is not an exception here. Pandemic, recession, and a certain degree of software winters will be coming with unclear length. At times of like that, the value-based healthcare will be probably more resilient than pure innovation. However, there is like an underlying big flow of like a reformation of regulation, and the government try to kind of streamline the structures. So I guess the research and investment for innovative ideas should continue for long-term survival. And the last one, we should probably avoid following like a fancy technology as a monetary gain. Probably need to focus on the customer needs and healthcare sector's future. So this is my last slide. Here's a gentleman named Mr. Danny Sanford, who is a quite renowned businessman in the South Dakota. The reason I'm showing this gentleman is he's the main investor of the Sanford Harris in South Dakota that I showed you in the previous slide. He had more than $1.5 billion donation into the center so that the center can develop a lot of healthcare related items and ideas into practice, including virtual clinic for those people who are in rural area that cannot get like healthcare in timely manner. So his motto is aspire to inspire before you expire, and I like it a lot. Thank you for your attention.